if someone had dropped a curtain of water from the sky. Nam stood under the school's awning, eyes following the red dirt yard as it turned into large puddles. He pulled his coat collar higher and let out a long, quiet breath. Beside him, Ms. Lan, a fellow literature teacher, was stacking lesson plans while glancing over at him. She smiled and spoke first. Not used to the Highland rain yet, Mr. Nam? Out here, if you forget a raincoat, you're bound to end up soaked like a drowned rat. Nam gave a small nod, his voice warm but a bit distant. Yeah, it rains a lot in Saigon too. But it's never this cold. Ms. Land chuckled softly, set her papers down, and looked out at the misty yard. When I first came here, I was just like you. Thought every rain was like the rain in Saigon. But here, it's different. Especially the afternoon rain. Nam tilted his head, intrigued. Different how? She hesitated for a moment, her gaze dropping slightly. Well, people say the afternoon rain up here often carries the voices of those who've passed away. Nam let out a small chuckle, not loud, more like a breath laced with a faint smile. You believe in that kind of thing? She replied as if telling an ordinary story. Not exactly believe, but I've heard it enough to get chills. Once, the school was completely empty. The rain was pouring, and suddenly I heard someone calling my name from the end of the hallway. But when I ran over, there was no one there. Nam was about to say something more, but the sound of the school drum cut him off. Students poured out, their laughter and chatter drowning out the rain. A breathless 8th grader named Tin ran up, holding out a raincoat. Mr. Nam, my dad asked me to give you this and said you should ride home with me so you won't get wet. Nam looked a bit surprised, bending down to pat Tin's head. Thanks, but my house is in the opposite direction. I don't want to trouble him. Tin shook his head. It's fine, sir. My dad's riding that way anyway. It'll be more fun with company. Nam finally nodded. He waved goodbye to Ms. Lan and stepped toward the gate, where Mr. Sao, Tin's father, was waiting on his old, weathered motorbike. On the way back, the rain grew heavier. Coffee plants along the roadside sagged under the weight of water, and the wind swept through rows of rubber trees. Mr. Sao leaned his head slightly as he rode, his voice thick with the mountain accent. You've just moved here, so you probably don't know the roads yet. Huh? At night, there's often a lot of fog. Nam held his raincoat tightly and nodded. Yes, it's only been a week, but it's so peaceful here. Mr. Sao let out a low chuckle. Peaceful has its charms, but also its downsides. Especially the stretches near the old cemetery. Nam's brow furrowed slightly. Old cemetery? Mr. Sao nodded slowly. Yeah, up ahead in the pine forest. During the war, a lot of people were buried there. Most have been moved, but a few graves remain, no names, no family. On rainy nights, when you pass by, you can hear strange sounds. The bike turned down a narrow, rocky path. The rain still fell, but there was no longer the noise of town, only the crunch of tires on stone and the mist rising thick around them. Nam pulled his hood lower, yet through the veil of rain, he caught a glimpse, between the pine trunks, of someone standing there. Before he could ask, the bike had already rounded the bend. A gust of icy wind swept past, and Nam shivered without thinking. Mr. Sao's vehicle gradually emerged from the shadowy pine forest. Nam still carried that strange sensation, as if something had brushed lightly against his mind. Mr. Sao glanced at him, his chuckle tinged with a hint of teasing. You look like you're scared of all those ghost stories in the mountains. Huh? City folk. Nam sighed, scratched his head, and replied, not exactly scared, just not used to it yet. Everything here feels different, the weather, the way people live. Mr. Sao nodded knowingly, his eyes glinting beneath the rain. Yeah, folks up here and folks down in the lowlands sometimes look at each other like we're from two different worlds. But don't worry, Kon Tum rain only makes people remember the things they've never really forgotten. Nam frowned slightly. Curiosity mixed with doubt. Things they've never forgotten? Mr. Sao pressed the gas lightly, the motor's clatter echoing through the rain. Old stories, people who once lived, loved, and then left without closure. They say the afternoon rain here is when the restless spirits come back. Nam fell silent, his gaze fixed on the rain-streaked window, where droplets slid endlessly down. The chill he felt didn't come only from the weather, it came from those words. Like whispers riding the wind. The vehicle stopped in front of a modest little house by the roadside. Mr. Sao cut the engine and turned to open the door for him. "Here we are. Come inside and warm up, it's too wet out here." Nam stepped down, his raincoat still dripping. He looked at the small house, its faint golden light spilling from the window. Just as his foot touched the step, a figure appeared inside, a middle-aged woman with a gentle face and eyes that held a trace of melancholy. She stepped out to open the door. "Thank you, Mr. Sao, for giving Mr. Nam a ride. The rain's heavy, and his place is far, he must be tired." Mr. Sao nodded, smiling softly. "When it rains like this, we all need to take care of each other. He's new here, we should welcome him properly." The woman smiled warmly at Nam. "You're Mr. Nam, right? I'm Hong, Mr. Sao's wife. Please, come in, I'll make you a hot cup of tea." Nam nodded, smiling in thanks, and followed her inside. The small kitchen carried the faint scent of ginger and the gentle aroma of steeping tea. Hong poured the tea into a cup, set it on the table, and asked, "So, how are you finding Kon Tum after these first few days?" Nam took a sip, the warmth spreading through him. "It's peaceful here, but it leaves you with a strange feeling, especially when it rains like this." Hong nodded, her gaze drifting toward the window where the rain kept falling. "The rain here isn't just water, it's memory. People say it's the breath of spirits still searching for a resting place." Nam stayed quiet, sensing an unusual stillness in the house. Then suddenly, from outside the window, a faint whisper drifted in. "Nam." He startled and turned to Hong, his eyes questioning. "Did someone just call my name?" Hong smiled gently, her voice low and calm. "It's probably just the wind and rain. Don't think too much of it." But in Nam's heart, the feeling wouldn't fade. Something here was waiting for him, though he didn't yet know what it was. The next morning, Nam woke to a pale sunlight filtering through the window, its glass still veiled in mist. The air was unnervingly still, broken only by the distant call of forest birds. He stood by the window, a cup of hot coffee warming his hands, eyes fixed on the pine forest beyond. A thin layer of mist clung to the treetops like a shroud, as if hiding something unnamed. Soft footsteps approached from behind. Nam turned to see Ms. Lan walking into the school's guest house, her arms cradling a stack of lesson plans. She offered him a gentle smile, her bright eyes carrying a quiet strength. Lan set the books down slowly before asking, "You're up early this morning. Did last night's rain keep you from sleeping?" Nam nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "A little. The rain here, it makes you pensive, especially when you've just arrived." Lan took a seat across from him, her gaze steady as she spoke softly. "The rain in Kon Tum isn't just weather. It's like a mirror, reflecting the memories of those who once lived here. Sometimes, I even hear my name in the wind, like a reminder or an invitation." Nam met her eyes, tilting his head slightly. "An invitation? To where?" Lan sighed, taking a small sip of tea before continuing. "No one knows for sure, but the village elders say that restless spirits often appear during long rains, especially at night, looking for someone to join them on the other side." A chill ran down Nam's spine. He set his cup on the table and turned toward the window. Through the mist, he caught sight of a faint figure standing silently by the small stream near the pines. His voice dropped, tinged with unease. "Do you see that? Someone standing there, aren't they?" Lan glanced over, her expression calm yet shadowed with concern. "You saw a figure? That's not unusual here. Don't dwell on it. Sometimes it's just the mist and rain playing tricks." Nam nodded, but the unease clung to him. He knew he couldn't keep ignoring this feeling. That evening, after everyone had gone home from a day of teaching, Nam decided to walk through the pine forest. The rain had eased, but the air remained damp and cool. As he walked, Lan's words echoed in his mind. His footsteps pressed into the wet ground, the sound of rustling leaves around him like whispers calling his name. Reaching the small stream, he stopped, scanning every tree trunk, every shadow against the gray sky. Then he heard it, a faint whisper, distant like the breath of the forest. Nam. He froze, heart pounding harder. The voice seemed to drift from deep within the forest, near yet impossibly far, like the echo of a forgotten memory. Nam answered slowly, his voice low. Who's there? No reply came, only the soft patter of rain on pine needles. He closed his eyes, drawing in the cool breath of the mountains. Darkness was settling in, bringing with it the secrets of Kon Tum, waiting for him to uncover. The night in Kon Tum stretched out like a velvet black carpet, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the wind whispering through the forest canopy. Nam sat by the window of his small rented room. The faint glow of a yellow lamp reflected against the damp, misted glass. He set his teacup down on the table, eyes drifting toward the pine forest in the distance, now swallowed in darkness. A heavy, indescribable feeling pressed on his chest, as though someone was watching him from within the night. Suddenly, a voice called out, soft, faint, like the wind slipping past his ear. Nam. Startled, Nam rose and stepped out onto the balcony, inhaling the crisp night air. He told himself, it's probably just an illusion from the wind and rain. But the voice continued, like an invitation, like a reminder. He turned back, and under the soft amber light, his gaze sharpened. The next day, in class, Nam met a quiet student named Mai. She always sat by the window, her deep eyes holding something unspoken. Nam asked gently, Mai, did you hear anything strange last night? She looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, I heard someone calling my name in the night. I thought it was just a dream. Nam nodded, feeling an unspoken connection between them. Here, sometimes we hear things that reason can't explain. The girl smiled, her eyes shimmering. I'm not afraid. The voice sounded like someone cared. Nam glanced out the window. The rain had started again, each drop sketching delicate lines down the glass. A chill rose in him from nowhere, as though Kon Tum's secrets were slowly revealing themselves. That evening, Nam returned to his lodging after dark. Light rain pattered on the tin roof. He slipped off his raincoat and stepped inside, his eyes scanning the modest room filled with simple belongings. Placing his bag on the table, he sat down and ran a hand over the family photo on the shelf. Memories of Saigon, of the days long past, washed over him. Bittersweet and warm, the wind suddenly gusted through the cracks in the door, carrying a coldness as if someone had just passed down the hallway. Nam looked up, scanning the shadows. Outside, in the dim light, he caught the fleeting figure of a woman gliding past his window, so fast it felt like a trick of the eye. He leapt to his feet, stepping outside and calling firmly, Who's there? Who's out there? No answer. Only the steady patter of rain on metal and the whisper of leaves in the wind. Frowning, Nam switched on his flashlight and searched the hallway. Finding nothing. Back inside, he thought, maybe I'm just too tired, imagining shapes in the rain. But deep down, the unease clung to him. That figure was no illusion, or at least, not a simple one. Nam sat down again, staring out the window. The rain kept falling, each drop like the whisper of spirits waiting for an answer. The next morning, Nam decided to visit the pine forest north of town, where Mr. Sao had once told him about the old cemetery with nameless graves. He wanted to see for himself what lay behind the stories. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting pale patches on the damp earth. The sound of birdsong mixed with the rustle of trees, creating a false sense of peace. Yet, a quiet unease followed Nam's every step. Deeper in the forest, he suddenly heard it, a muffled sob echoing in the still air. Soft, but heavy with sorrow. The hair on his arms rose. He stopped, scanning the trees. Who's there? Do you need help? No answer, only the faint crying, fading as if retreating deeper into the woods. Nam pushed forward, weaving through the undergrowth. Then he saw her, a hazy figure ahead, wearing a long white dye, her hair drenched, her face hidden in a veil of thick mist. Nam slowed, his voice low but careful. Are you all right? Can I help you? The woman said nothing. She only looked at him with hollow, sorrowful eyes, as if holding a message she could not speak. A sudden gust of wind swept through, scattering golden leaves across the path. The woman blurred, then dissolved into nothing, as though she had never been there. Nam stood frozen, heart pounding. He knew he had just encountered something beyond explanation. And in that moment, he thought, this isn't just Mr. Sao's tale or a village rumor. Some things truly exist, waiting for someone brave enough to face them. The next morning, Kon Tum was still damp from the night's rain. Nam woke in his small rented room. The dim light from the window softened by a thin layer of mist outside. The air was quiet, broken only by the steady drip of water from the tin roof to the ground. He pulled on a light jacket, preparing to walk toward the pine forest north of town, the place Mr. Sao had mentioned before, the old cemetery with nameless graves. Steeped in the sorrowful stories of wartime and the departed. Stepping outside, the early morning air was crisp, the moisture mingling with the earthy scent of wet soil and the distinct aroma of fresh pine. Nam inhaled deeply, letting the unique essence of the highlands fill his lungs. The cold seeped into him, threading through the thin layers of clothing. Yet it didn't feel unpleasant. Instead, it carried a serene stillness that soothed the spirit. The dirt road, littered with pebbles, crunched beneath his shoes. Dew clung to the leaves like tiny jewels, glinting with the first light of day. The calls of forest birds occasionally broke the peaceful silence. Gray clouds still lingered over the distant mountain peaks, painting a landscape both wild and poetic. As Nam ventured deeper, the towering pines formed a cool green wall, casting the ground beneath into dimness under their dense canopy. His footsteps crackled softly over the carpet of dry needles, echoing faintly among the straight, silent trunks. A light breeze stirred, rustling the leaves into a whispering melody, like the murmurs of an ancient forest. He didn't know how long he had been walking when, from somewhere ahead, a soft, muffled sob drifted through the still air. It wasn't loud, but it carried a sorrow so deep it made the hairs on his arms rise. Nam stopped, eyes widening as he tilted his head to listen. The crying continued, gentle, drawn out, like a faint plea for help buried within the forest sounds. He called out cautiously, "Who's there? Does someone need help?" The sobbing didn't stop. If anything, it stretched further, heavy with grief. Nam followed the sound, pushing through thick undergrowth, careful not to lose his way in the vast woods. Gradually, a woman's figure emerged through the veil of mist. She wore a long white ao dai, soaked from the night's rain. Her long black hair covered most of her face, but her eyes, deep and shadowed, held an unending sorrow. Nam steadied his voice, speaking warmly yet with concern. "Are you all right? Is there anything I can do for you?" She didn't answer, only looked at him with empty eyes, her gaze heavy with a story untold, a message unspoken. The wind picked up, scattering dry leaves across the path, the forest's whisper deepening, both tender and cold. Slowly, the woman faded into the thick mist until she was gone, as though she had never been there. Nam stood frozen, his heartbeat quickening, a shiver crawling through him. He knew he had brushed against something beyond human understanding, something that lay on the thin line between the living and the dead. He exhaled quietly, thinking to himself, this isn't just Mr. Sao's tale or the village rumors. This is real. The things people avoid speaking of, they're still here, right beside us, and I had to be brave enough to face them. Turning back, he walked slowly, each step on the dew-soaked leaves sounding steady against the forest's quiet. Birds called from afar, their voices weaving into a lingering, mournful melody, and as he made his way home, he thought he could still hear it, faint, distant, the drawn-out sobbing in the mist, like a message, like the voice of a soul still searching for rest. Night fell slowly over Kon Tum, the cold mist draping the small town in a ghostly veil. Nam sat alone in his rented room, the pale yellow lamp casting soft light into the dark corners of the modest space. Outside the window, the rain had started again, pattering on the tin roof, mingling with the mournful howl of wind through the old pine trees. He set his teacup down on the table, his mind still caught on the morning in the pine forest. The image of the woman in white and the sound of that faint sobbing lingered, haunting him. Nam wondered if he should tell someone about it, or keep it as his own secret. Suddenly, the ring of his phone pulled him from his thoughts. On the screen appeared Lan's name. Nam answered, his tone warm. "Hello, Lan, what are you up to?" Her cheerful voice came right away. "I just got to your place. Planning to invite you out for coffee. I wanted to hear more about your forest rain story." Nam smiled, a softness in his eyes. "Yeah, I just took a walk in the pines, some strange things happened. Maybe we should get some fresh air tonight." Lan agreed without hesitation. "Good idea, we can talk. Nobody else here would really understand these things." About an hour later, they met at a small roadside cafe. Its warm glow spilling out into the misty night. The rich aroma of coffee filled the air, mingling with the gentle music inside and the soft patter of rain outside, making the conversation feel even more intimate. Nam recounted in detail the events of that morning, his eyes betraying both unease and curiosity. That woman, she felt like the embodiment of a spirit. Her eyes were so deep, so sorrowful, like she carried a story she could never tell. Lan nodded, her voice calm and gentle. "I understand that feeling. The rain in Kon Tum doesn't just soak your clothes, it seeps into your soul. There are so many stories people never speak of, yet they're always there, in every drop of rain, in every gust of wind." Nam sighed, his gaze fixed on the coffee cup before him. "I feel like I'm standing on the border between two worlds. One is ordinary life, the other is full of things I can't explain." Lan smiled, placing her hand lightly over his. "Sometimes, to understand, we have to be brave enough to look straight into the darkness. And there's no need to be afraid." Nam met her gaze, and in her eyes, he seemed to find comfort and strength. Outside, the rain grew heavier, as though it, too, wanted to continue telling stories that were not yet finished. That afternoon, the sky over Kon Tum was heavy and gray, thick clouds gathering as if to blanket the entire town. Light rain began to fall early, each tiny droplet like a whisper from nature, blending with the unhurried rhythm of highland life. Nam stood at the window of his small rented room, his gaze drifting toward the red dirt road outside, where fallen pine needles formed a soft, thick carpet beneath the gentle rain. His deep eyes seemed to search for something, though even he wasn't sure what. A gentle knock broke the dense stillness of the rainy afternoon. Nam turned to see Lan standing there with a small umbrella, her cheeks flushed from the rain and wind. She smiled softly. "The rain's gotten heavier. You shouldn't be standing out here so long. Come walk with me. The afternoon rain here is nothing like it is down in the lowlands." Nam nodded, quickly throwing on his jacket, and together they stepped outside. They walked along the red dirt road, the rain light enough not to drench them immediately, adding only a damp sweetness to the air. A soft breeze carried the scent of freshly wet earth, mingled with the faint fragrance of pine, calming Nam's heart. His eyes roamed from tree branches to rooftops half hidden in the misty rain. Lan's voice blended with the sound of falling rain. "You know, the people of the Central Highlands believe that afternoon rain is when spirits return. Not to frighten anyone, but to remind us that the past never truly leaves." Nam paused, his gaze meeting hers, his tone low. "Do you think what I've been seeing could be those spirits?" Lan nodded slightly, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Maybe, or maybe it's your own soul calling you back to parts of yourself you've forgotten." Nam thought of the woman in white in the forest, her sorrowful gaze like an ocean of grief. His voice caught. She felt like a reminder. A story untold, one I can't yet understand. Lan smiled, resting her hand gently on his shoulder. "You don't have to understand it right away. Let things unfold naturally. Sometimes the greatest secrets are revealed through the smallest, most patient steps." They continued down the narrow village paths, the sound of rain falling on old rooftops and aging pine needles following them. The air was damp and cool, but not cold, carrying a warmth that felt close and familiar. Nam felt a strange peace inside, though a lingering restlessness remained. He knew he was standing between two worlds, the present, and the realm of things that had no name. Before they parted ways, Lan stopped, her expression serious. "Do you remember the promise you made at the start of the year?" Nam froze, recalling a brief conversation when he had first arrived in Kon Tum, how he'd vowed to live true to himself and not let the ghosts within overshadow him. He looked at Lan, smiling faintly. And what was that promise? Lan's smile held a spark of hope. The promise not to give up, no matter what happens, so that one day, when you look back, you'll see you were strong enough to overcome anything. Nam nodded, feeling warmth spread through him in the chill of the rainy afternoon. He knew this journey was only beginning, and all of Kon Tum's secrets were waiting for him, with both courage and an open heart. The next morning, as the first light of dawn filtered through the forest canopy, Nam woke earlier than usual. The small room still held traces of the night's chill, but his spirit felt lighter. Lan's words from the day before lingered in his mind, like a small light guiding him through the mist of mysteries. He decided to return to the pine forest where he had seen the woman in white. This time, it wasn't just curiosity, but a deep, unshakable pull from within. He wanted to understand what he had not been able to explain. The red dirt path was soft after the rain, with pools of water gathered in stone crevices, reflecting the gentle light of morning. The tall pines spread a canopy of deep green, their fallen golden needles forming a natural carpet underfoot. Nam walked slowly, running his hand over the rough bark, feeling the grooves etched by time. The familiar sounds of the forest began to stir, birdsong and the soft rustle of leaves swaying with the breeze. When he reached the small stream winding through the forest, a mix of tenderness and sadness washed over him. He stood still, watching the crystal-clear water rush past. The stream felt like a mirror, reflecting memories slowly surfacing in his mind. Then, in the stillness, he heard it, a faint whisper. As if from deep beneath the earth, the voice brushed past like the lightest wind. Nam. He turned quickly, scanning the surroundings, but saw only swaying branches and the morning light filtering through the leaves. Nam stayed silent, his heart filling with a loneliness that wasn't fear, but a distant ache for something lost. He wondered, am I standing between past and present, where unfinished memories still linger? From afar, the sound of approaching footsteps reached him. Nam turned to see Lan walking toward him, holding an old book, its spine coated in dust. She smiled gently. I found my grandmother's diary. Maybe it will help you understand what's been happening here. Nam looked at the book, feeling the weight of the past pressed into every yellowed page. He opened it carefully, skimming over the slanted handwriting. Each story was a fragment of family history, tales of those who had lived, loved, and lost on this land. Lan stood beside him, her gaze thoughtful. Sometimes the past isn't just memory. It's a seed for the future. And we, the young, must keep it alive. Nam nodded, a renewed resolve taking root in his heart. The journey to uncover Kon Tum's secrets was no longer just about chasing the mysterious. It was a journey to rediscover himself. Nam and Lan sat side by side on the front steps of a small house near the pine forest, the old diary resting between them. The late afternoon light cast a golden hue across everything, making the scene feel both ethereal and gentle. Nam opened the first page. The slanted handwriting faded with time. August 3rd, 1975, the first rainy season after the country's reunification. He read aloud, his warm, steady voice sounding almost as if he were telling the story to himself. Grandmother wrote about the painful days of war, the losses her family endured, and the ghosts that haunted not only her dreams. Lan looked at him, her eyes shimmering with empathy. My grandmother always believed that the souls of the departed could never truly leave the place they once lived. They are fragments of memory, waiting to be set free. Nam nodded and continued reading. September 15th, she wrote about a young woman who mysteriously vanished in the pine forest. People whispered that her spirit still wanders, calling out to her loved ones on rainy nights. He paused, his gaze drifting far away, as if he could see the woman in white standing before him. A sharp pang of sorrow welled up inside him, sensing the depth of her unspoken pain. Lan's voice lowered, solemn. The stories in the diary aren't just history, they're pleas to be heard, to be understood, and to finally rest. Nam set the book down, his eyes heavy with thought. Maybe the spirits I've encountered aren't here to scare me. Maybe they're here to remind me, to wait for a connection. Lan's smile was soft, reassuring. Exactly. And maybe we're the ones meant to bring them peace. Outside, the steady rain and the wind through the old pines blended into a tender melody, like the mountain's lullaby to the soul still trapped between worlds. Nam no longer felt alone on this journey. With Lan by his side, he would keep searching, facing, and understanding the quiet secrets that slept in Kon Tum's rain and forests. Night in Kon Tum descended like a thick black curtain, extinguishing every trace of daylight. The silence was so deep. The only sound was Nam's steady breathing in the small room. The pale yellow lamp cast a faint glow, his shadow stretching against the wall like a solitary figure. Nam couldn't sleep. The diary's words, the image of the woman in white, and the soft sobbing in the forest circled endlessly in his mind. He sat up, gazing out the window at the darkness covering the endless trees. Suddenly, the wind howled at the door, carrying with it a sharp chill that seeped through every crack. Nam sensed something unusual, as if the darkness wasn't merely the absence of light, but the presence of something unseen. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped out of the room, closing the door quietly behind him. His footsteps creaked on the wooden floor, the sound echoing faintly. The dim hallway lights barely cut into the thick darkness. As he reached the end of the hall, he heard it, a whisper. Faint at first, like someone calling his name. Nam, Nam. His heartbeat quickened. He spun around, scanning the shadows, but saw no one. The whisper grew louder, more insistent, like a desperate plea. Nam froze, eyes straining to separate sound from silence. Then, in the weak beam of his flashlight, he saw her, the woman in white, slipping past the hallway. He called out, his voice trembling. Who are you? Why are you here? She didn't speak. She only looked at him with eyes deep and sorrowful, heavy with untold stories. Her form faded slowly, dissolving into nothingness. Nam exhaled sharply, his heart still pounding. He knew this was no coincidence, it was a sign. A message from beyond. Back in his room, he shut the door and sat down, his gaze fixed on the rain-filled night outside. The spirits in the forest weren't just ghosts, they were fragments of memory. Pieces of stories left untold. Nam told himself silently, I had to do something to help them rest. I had to find the truth. Night mist blanketed the small town of Kon Tum, each raindrop falling quietly like the whispers of the mountains and forests, soothing the souls of those caught between reality and the supernatural. Nam sat at his desk, the soft golden lamplight casting a thoughtful glow over his face. He opened the diary once more, reading each weathered line as if searching for the final answer to the mysteries buried deep in the earth and in his own soul. Outside, the rain mingled with the wind rustling through the old pine trees, creating a symphony of nature and memory. Nam closed his eyes, feeling each breath, each heartbeat merging with the rhythm of life in this land. Suddenly, a faint glow appeared by the window, and the woman in white appeared one last time. But this time, her eyes no longer held sorrow or despair. They shone with peace and serenity. Nam stood and stepped closer to the window, his voice soft and reverent. You've found your rest now, haven't you? Thank you for showing me the way. The woman smiled gently, then slowly dissolved into shimmering light, leaving Nam with a sense of peace he had never felt before. He knew the journey was far from over, but at least he had begun to understand the meaning of the ghosts in the rain, the voices that echoed through the ancient forest. Nam returned to his desk, his eyes filled with resolve. I'll keep living and recording the untold stories, so no soul will be left alone. The rain continued to fall, soft and steady, like a promise, like new life beginning in the mountains and forests of Kon Tum. After days of quiet reflection, Nam felt a deeper connection to Kon Tum and the silent stories it held. He decided to spend more time learning, not just about the spirit he had encountered, but about the history and the people of this land. Early in the morning, Nam and Lan set out for the old pine forest again, this time carrying a voice recorder and a few note-taking tools. The air was still cool, light mist curling along the path, creating an atmosphere that was both mysterious and warmly familiar. On the way, Lan shared more about the customs, traditional festivals, and the ways the local people connected with the spirit world. Her voice was gentle, steeped in affection and respect for her homeland. Nam listened intently, each detail widening the picture in his heart, helping him feel more deeply connected to the land. His footsteps pressed into the damp soil. Forest birds sang in the distance, and the murmur of a nearby stream mingled with Lan's voice to form a vivid harmony in the heart of the mountains. By dusk, they stopped by the stream where they had once heard the woman's sobs. Nam switched on the recorder, carefully capturing the natural sounds of the forest and the rushing water. Then, through the noise of the current and the wind, a faint voice came through the device. "Help us find peace?" Nam and Lan looked at each other, shivers running down their spines, but also a surge of determination. They knew the ghosts were not merely haunting, they were carrying an earnest plea. Lan spoke softly, "We have to help them rest. That's our responsibility to this land and its souls." Nam nodded, his heart steady with patience and resolve. After days of searching and investigation, they discovered an old, abandoned grave deep in the forest. The headstone was worn and faded, but faint traces of a name and a few simple words remained. They held a small ceremony, lighting incense and reciting prayers in the local tradition. The air grew warm and calm, a peace unlike anything they had felt before. At that moment, a light breeze passed through, carrying the fragrance of wildflowers and a gentle whisper, like a thank you from the freed spirits. Nam looked at Lan, his eyes bright with hope and joy. Maybe this is just the beginning of other stories, other journeys, but this time, we won't be alone. The forest rain of Kon Tum continued to fall, its pure drops nourishing the earth and the hearts of the living. Morning mist draped the tall pine trees, forming a thin, dreamlike veil over the winding red dirt road. Nam walked slowly, holding the old diary Lan had given him, his eyes full of curiosity tinged with a quiet melancholy. Suddenly, through the haze, a familiar figure emerged, the woman in white, her long hair draped gently over her shoulders. This time, her gaze no longer held sadness or despair, but glimmered with a tender light, as if to say thank you. Nam hesitated, his voice low and warm. "You've truly found your rest now, haven't you? Thank you for guiding me." The woman smiled softly, seeming to respond with a slow nod before fading into the mist, leaving Nam with a profound sense of completeness, as if the final piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. Back in town, Nam and Lan realized that their story was only one small part of the countless secrets of Kon Tum. The unrested spirits, the untold stories, they were still waiting for someone to carry them forward. Nam placed the diary on the table, his eyes steady with determination. "We'll keep recording, learning, and sharing, so the stories won't be forgotten, and the ghosts can find the light." Lan smiled in agreement, "And maybe, along the way, we'll find our own peace too." Light rain began to fall outside the window, blending with the distant call of forest birds, creating a song of life, memory, and hope.